Suck it to me.
Hello gang, this is essentially hopefully a brief video. I don't know what I'm doing, hence the flag. I thought it would give a splash of colour. It's the white ensign for the Royal Navy. My late friend got it for me years and years ago, and well, why not, hey? Essentially it's following a set pattern. This one's going to be a highlight of our social isolation, self-distancing, quarantine, end of the world, whatever you chaps want to refer to it. Because even though I'm broadcasting to the internet in theory, and a select few maybe at that, the idea of these really, apart from giving me something to do I suppose, wasting my life uploading video. I've been spending now the past 3-4 hours uploading my latest history thing and tour guide video, and it's still got another 2 hours to upload. But mental health is awfully important nowadays. When I was unemployed 2008 through 11 and going to the job centre every week, a period of my life I'm still not happy about, thrilled about and embarrassed about. If you said you know, somebody once asked, the whatever they call them when you sign on every week would say, have you been ill or something? No, yeah, I was late once. I was never, in the time I was at the job centre, I was only ever late I think twice in a couple of years. And she said, were you ill? And I said only mentally, and she gave me a sharp look. Apparently it would get you off these return to work courses, but I didn't want to use that. And there was a stigma. Nowadays it seems everyone's got mental health issues, and I suppose we all do. But as I was saying about child abuse and domestic abuse cases with coronavirus, and mental health it has usually. Until this started, I was incredibly anxious about coming home, be it from London or from the town centre. So that would be when probably I started sitting in a pub to kill time and 1 pint, and then there was some kind of breakdown in February, and it's not been the same since really. The only thing is I'm not spending money now on other than my essentials, and that's every 4 days, so I'm saving money clearly enough, and it's taking coronavirus. But I'm not the kind of person, weirdly enough, to go out and phone people, and I can message people, but I feel like I'm being it's just complicated, and that's what I'm telling you chaps. Essentially, I feel quite tired, despite the fact I could lie in, but I can't lie in. Partly because I suppose downstairs being the fitness instructor types are doing their thing at 9:30 or whatever, and also I'm not sleeping right. I haven't got any sleeping pills. The doctor gave me some end of January, February time, maybe March. It's all faded into one, and they didn't do any good. I was waking up within an hour of taking them. So you wake, put the kettle on, open your curtains, put CD on the old Blu-ray player, so you got some background music. And I had a thing up until the other day for my Ben Hur soundtrack. I mean, the piece of music Miklos Skrosha has for when Jack Hawkins's Roman gets the slaves to row like the blazers as a test. It's incredible, it just builds up. And then you sit down, get the old laptop turned on, check your emails, which is a habit I got when I was unemployed, you know, because you never know. And at the moment it's universal credit emails, and yesterday I was plagued by these extortion emails claiming they've got me doing stuff on a webcam. Apparently I've got a weird taste in... that put the mockers on it. A weird taste. That was weird, it just stopped recording. See, that's what happens when you mention you had a crush on Kirstie Alley back in the day, but that was primarily because of her role in Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. She was the better Sapphic. And in a way, I suppose it did, but like I read a review thing on some website saying that, you know, the show had to change if it was going to keep going. I mean, it lasted 11 seasons in the end, and it's one reason why. Is one reason why. Why Frasier lasted 11 seasons, because they wanted to equate Cheers, but Coach Stein didn't help. Nicholas Colasanto. I only ever grew up with Woody Harrelson series. You know, I remember first watching Cheers when I was about 4 or 5 years old. So that would have been seasons 9 and 10, 8 and 9 probably. So I never saw a Coach episode until my teenage years. So I was like, who's this? And also it was weird watching the show from the first episode. Sam's hair, you can gauge the episode by Ted Danson's hair. It seems natural in the first 2 seasons, and then next thing you know, it's blatantly dyed, or, you know, sadly, even though he showed in the penultimate episode he wore a piece, or Sam did, but Ted Danson did, he still looks like he persists with it, and apparently he doesn't like conversations about his hair, but at least we know, unlike William Shatner. So Cheers is comforting. I mean, the episodes where it's solely in the bar, I mean, they spent the whole first season in the bar. Sam's office, toilets, the pool room was basically where they went. And then I think Diane's room was Diane's apartment in season 2, episode 1. And then they were all over the place. And what I liked towards the end is that I think they felt like they had to go over to Boston and do some on-location filming. So it was always good to see them actually on the streets of Boston. Like how Spin City, when it was with Michael J. Fox, was in New York. And you had the World Trade Center in the background, because it was 96 through 99. To 2000 he did it. So anyway, that's happening. I've got my Boston Legal box sets. I'm on season 2. I've got my Galactica Blu-ray, the original series. That is. At some point, if this lockdown goes on, I've got my Batman 66. Adam West is my Batman. But all that is happening. I'm trying to read. I'm reading my books. I've read, I think, a dozen or something since this started. I'm on Ben-Hur by Lou Wallace at the moment. It's interesting as a book. I've seen the film more, of course. I haven't read the book till today. I'm doing my Roman binge at the moment. I did the epics on DVD, and that's inspired me to read the books, which I've had in my pile for ages. So I've done my Robert Harris Cicero trilogy. I've read Robert Harris's Pompeii book, which is brilliant, how the eruption is sort of in the background, you know, things are happening and then it happens. It's brilliant. There was going to be a film. He wrote a screenplay for Roman Polanski, but the actors' strike happened. And I've got in my pile The Eagle of the Ninth and the 2 sequels. And Rosemary Sutcliffe's Eagle of the Ninth, I loved her as a child. And then after that I got a book called Clash of Eagles, which is alternate history, where the Romans have landed in North America. So we'll see how that goes. And then I think I'm on to my Jack London mythology, White Fang, Call of the Wild. I remember watching White Fang as a TV series in the 90s. Somebody can correct me. And then trying to do my Nano National November Writing Month Camp Nano project, 40,000 words by the 30th of April and 4,000 words adrift, and I just can't keep the bloody thing going. The story's cool. It's story's original idea in the sense that usually I'm knackering my ambassador's daughter, my love story, my girl meets boy, boy meets girl. I've pushed my alternate history stories, which were laying complete for ages. My Germania series it's had more title changes as a series than I've sent emails to agents. I think the first series was called Swastika, then it was Wise and Eagle, and then it was Germania. And Germania is a better fit because the idea of these stories is that it starts in World War II, and that is like the big story, it's like 200 pages, and it sets up from 1943 through 46, Germany winning the war, you know, defeating. It starts off at the point of divergence is Malta falling, and then Germany defeats Russia because they were able to get the extra troops up or whatever. They win in North Africa because they've taken, and all this stuff, and then there's no D-Day, effectively. And then Charles Lindbergh becomes president, and he wins the election on the promise to get his chaps out, and he just pulls America out of the war. So the things with alternate history, I try and base it in what could have been reality and the decisions, but ultimately you go in a direction that somebody somewhere will go, yeah, that wouldn't have happened like that, this wouldn't have happened. The Germans develop a nuclear bomb, they test it, as I'd imagine the Nazis would have done, on a Russian town. Which town. They develop a transatlantic jet bomber. I saw an article in the Daily Mail once about a book that was coming out about these planes that Germany were aiming to build before the war ended, and they were close to doing one, which I believe inspired the B-2 bomber. And the main image is this sort of like gull-winged, one-wing craft called a Rado 555, and it's an illustration of it over New York, and so I use that as my basis, and at the same time you've got my point of view characters. So you've got my British pilot and my British Navy captain, and you've got my German Army colonel, my German bomber pilot, and I've got a German Navy captain, so I've actually got more German characters. And Britain is gradually knocked down, there's no fuel coming in, and bits like that, and then there's a second Battle of Britain, and then Germany invades in September 45, and Churchill's killed in the invasion, and then they go after America and start bombing the cities, and then when America's not crumbling, Hitler drops the nuclear bomb on DC, and then they make peace, the Treaty of Zurich. And then that sets it up, because the whole idea of these stories was that back in the day, me and my mates at school were trying to put ourselves in a story, and I don't know where the idea of Germany, Nazi Britain in 2000 came from, but I wrote a story as a laugh, and then they moved on, and being somebody who likes writing stories, I kept redrafting it, to the point that now I'm on the 7th version and still haven't finished it, and that's book 3, and then I realised I kind of needed to sell out, and now I did the World War II story, but it was never the longest story, so that came along, but then I needed to bridge a gap, because my main character, who's a police officer in Aylesbury, he's in the criminal police, and he's by association the commander of the SS in Aylesbury. So he's not, it's complicated. He's not a Nazi party member, but being the senior police, or is, I don't know, I'm making it up probably. My original, there's murders at the college, and then there's the Fuhrer is coming on a state visit, and there's an assassination attempt, and it's far-fetched beyond compare, but the backstory of this character is that his father, who was also a police officer, was murdered during the so-called October War, or October Madness of 1974, where the Reichsführer SS is trying to take power from the new Führer, because Hitler's died, and he named this fictional character, who's the head of the SS, to be his successor, because there's no one else around in 74 that he trusts. So this Strasbourg fella becomes commander, and the chap he makes SS leader, Gotthard Eisberg, doesn't like it. So there's a sort of like a civil war in Berlin, and the father of this copper, Ferner, gets caught up in it. He starts off by investigating things, and then ends up sort of like helping out the Führer, and just spying, and got Eisberg has him arrested, tortured, and the Führer leads a liberation force, and they get there just after he's executed. And so that's and the mother just disappears. The Nazis had something called Night and Fog, Nacht and Noble, and basically just disappeared into the night. That was enacted in 1934. So she disappears. So this guy's got, I wouldn't say he's got problems, but his parents are gone. So anyway, this story, Passport from South Pimlico, inspired by the books of Clive Cussler, Neville Shute, and my 1950s bombs. Clive Cussler died a couple of months ago, my hero. And so I thought, well, let's do it. Let's try and do something different. And the idea I had the idea a couple of years ago, but never got going with it. There's his trio, a young British chap, his girlfriend who he met at Southampton Uni and this older Australian chap who used to be in the army, Pinky, they got a Boeing 314 Clipper. If you Google it, it's like Pan American Trans-Pacific planes that were all gone by the 50s. So they built one from scratch, and they use it to ferry stuff around the world. And they're on their way from Chile to the Falkland Islands, and there's a storm and they lose their way. The navigations are crap, and they discover this island. It's not on any of the maps. It's a crescent-shaped place, and they call it South Pimlico. It's called South Pimlico when they get there, but something's not quite right. Everything's rooted in the 1950s, the fashion, what cars there are. They've got pictures of George VI on the walls and this kind of stuff. And then it becomes clear that for years, people haven't been leaving the island. So it's kind of like a land that time forgot meets something. So anyway, I'm trying to do that, but I can't get going with it. I don't eat consistently like it. I mean, I'm waiting until it gets dark now. And then bed, midnight, 4 o'clock, depends. And it repeats. And I know that's everyone else is doing something similar, but there's nowhere for me to walk to that I feel safe doing so. And there's a lot of stories still in town, people being abused and out on the streets. NHS workers are being stopped walking down the pavement in places. So there's all that crap going on. But it's tiresome. And then as a laugh, you put yourself back on dating websites and stuff, and it's just pointless, utterly pointless. I don't know how people meet often and get married. You know, I was on OkCupid until today for a year, and I admittedly didn't bother messaging because I did it once in 2015 into 16 for about 12-14 months, and I think I sent over 200 messages because I know that by the time I finished with it, my sent box, I had to delete messages and it said 200 max. And initially I'd like send, I suppose reasonably long. I thought like a CV. You sort of looked at their profile and go, well, they like books, they like Star Trek or something, you know, and you go, oh, I like Star Trek, I like books, or you know, I you know, and it just nothing. And I had 5 replies total, I think, in that year. The first one told me I had typos, and she was a school teacher, and she said, you're welcome to correct me on stuff. Like, I wouldn't dare to. Another girl said quite bluntly, you're not my type, and I thought, okay. And then this other girl just got this lambastic, I was bombarded, really defeated. Apparently I was deceiving girls because I was living here in Aylesbury and I was looking at people in London, and I had an idea of a girl that wasn't right, and I just wanted a girlfriend, you know. So I deleted it. She was so nasty. I mean, you know, I was bullied at school, but this was something else. It was just like a blitzkrieg of verbal diarrhea. Verbal, she did in a message. So I thought last year, before I started on the tour buses, I put myself back on it, left it, and then messaged a couple of people lately, and they disappeared from my page. So I think I've been blocked purely by saying hello. Couldn't get anywhere just by asking for coffee, and you got Tinder, and somebody said, why do you do Bumble? Somebody at M&S had told me to do Bumble as well. And apparently the women make the first move, no one has. Both of them, if somebody likes you, you can't see them, they pixelate the images like something out of Crime Watch. You got the option with a super like, which apparently bumps your chances up ×3. And it's all awful, the world we live in. How people did it before the internet fucked it over for the rest of us, I have no idea. Because, you know, now alright, looks, or what they, you know, looks, but you never judge a book by its cover, even though I've fallen for women based on their look. And indeed, you pick up your phone, which I'm recording, also I can't, and you go to your, you go, oh look, she's got red hair, freckles, she's 30, she lives in High Wycombe. You scroll down, and you got the option to look over photos. Most of these girls are in a state of undress. heavily made up, pouting, selfies. They on Instagram, which I can never say properly at the best of times. There's all manner of stipulations that people have. You know, you've got to be 6 foot and above, or I've got children. If you don't like that's right, put it left. Fine, fair enough. No time wasters, message me if we match, blah blah blah, all this specifics, and no shirtless pics, no dick pics, and there's no problem. If I did that to the internet would collapse from the shock of it, and also I'm very self-conscious. So I matched with somebody, and I thought to myself, shit, I better message her. So I thought I'd do it in the evening when I had a bevy. And before I could, I got a message that said, hola. And I said, hello, how are you on this fine day? Because I figured do something a little bit different. Nothing. No reply. In days. I get matched on OkCupid by what is best described as somebody who's fairly highly sex from the looks of it, which I didn't realise until after we matched, and then I scrolled down the page and what her ideal day was, and she's in Portsmouth, and I like Portsmouth. Hence the shirt and the city, and nothing. I suppose people just go through it, don't they? Just going swipe right, swipe right, swipe right, swipe right, and then when they match, they can prune it. With me, I guess I'm more judicious. You know, I always match if they're close to me, if they like what I like. Maybe they're redheads. But you base your initial thing on the look, and then you swipe within 3 seconds. I keep getting told I'm not old. I'm 35 in September. I've got grey hairs, and I've now got white in my beard. And even my arm hair is starting to turn white. I like old movies. I like old music. I support Portsmouth because I'm a glutton for punishment. Oh Matt, you'll find someone is all I've heard since I was 18 and Vicky blew up in my face, and not in that way that you're thinking. To me, when I think something about a girl, it's vaguely serious, and I've not really pursued many. I think you could count them on one hand, to be fair. I've had maybe a dozen crushes in 14, my maths is crap, 15 years. This video's already taken 20 odd bloody minutes. I have no idea if anyone's watching these in their entirety. YouTube, I mean, I don't care in a way, but YouTube, when I've uploaded a video, it takes me to my analytic page, and it's like, oh, this is your, and people are watching 4 minutes of a 20-minute video, so I would trim these, but the idea of them is that they're like isolation videos, recording things, and maybe if I go back to the tour bus job, whether or not keep going, I mean, trying to do the blog, no one cares about that, or maybe I'm just putting too much crap upon people. Gotta go out of the house on Saturday to the post office to do my gas and electric. That'll be fun. It's in the town centre. Just feels you can't do anything. And you shouldn't be anyway. Nowhere should be open, but you have to, life has to carry on. And now saying the lockdown could carry on for another 4 weeks, so that's almost the end of May, isn't it? We do what we can, and that's the basis of all human morality. Just as well I can't monetize these videos, isn't it? Somebody let Christopher Plummer know that I've got a bunch of questions I'd love to ask him, and I'd like to buy him a glass of red wine if he ever comes over to Britain after this shit's over. He's 90, so I'm not imagining we're ever going to meet. George Seagal, he's 86 now. William Shatner is 88. All my heroes are getting old. or dead. Stuart Whitman died the other day. One of the last actors from The Longest Day in TV series of the 60s. He was 92. Lyle Wagner, who lost out on Batman to Adam West, has died from the Carol Burnett show. So, if you can, give some money to Samaritans and the NHS, I suppose. And don't do dating sites, kids. Don't have kids, because there won't be a planet for them to be in at this rate. So drink safely, drink responsibly, and don't do anything, or don't do anyone I wouldn't do. I don't any problems in that regard. Delete your social media, and send all proceeds to your nearest British embassy if you are in a foreign country. So, chin chin.